Yes, YouTube, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, welcome to MVP Money. Today, we're going to talk about two tech giants. We're going to be talking about Microsoft and we're going to be talking about Apple and which one I believe is the best investment right now. I'm out for a walk with the Mont. Where's he at? I swear he is a lot cuter than that usually. We've just had him shaved, so he's a bit bald. But yeah, I've had a really big week at work. I had a couple of jobs over the weekend, just making some extra money. It's Sunday, so it's a day off. Just taking Monty for a walk. We're going to get back to the house. We're going to go through the research that I've been doing, and we're going to let you know which of these I'm putting a big investment down in this week. Okay, let's go to Apple first. Apple is the biggest stock in the Dow Jones, meaning if you had an ETF that mirrored the Dow Jones, Apple would make up about 10% of your investment within that. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? We'll get to that in a minute, but first I want to talk about the big news. That Apple stock is splitting at a 4-to-1 ratio. Now, this is the first time this has happened since 2016. In that year, Apple stock split 7-to-1. Now, some good news for people that are wanting to invest in Apple right now, or if you have just invested in Apple already. The last time that happened, the growth of Apple stock is at 325%. Now, that is a huge amount, but let me touch on what a stock split really means. It actually doesn't really mean that much. What it does mean is you'll have more shares. If you bought one share of Apple at $400, on the 28th of August, you'll then have 4 shares. Now, that does not mean it is of more value or less value, or that Apple are a good company or a bad company. It is just something some companies do, and Apple have done this on numerous occasions. Now, a big reason why I believe they're doing this is to make the stock more accessible, especially for new investors. And there's been a lot in 2020. They're going to look online and see that Apple stock is worth, around $100 after that. That sounds like a bargain to me, but what you've got to do is you've got to look into the numbers, and are Apple a company that you really want to invest in before the stock split? Because again, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. And don't forget, you could already invest in fractional shares. You could already buy at whatever price you wanted. If you only wanted to put £200 into a share of Apple, you could already. But what this will do is it'll make people think it's more accessible. All I'm saying is don't believe the hype. I have seen so many people talking about how this is a great time for investing in Apple and all that kind of stuff just because of the stock split. I am saying no, it is not. I'm not saying it's not a good time to invest in Apple. I'm just saying don't invest in Apple just because it's gone through a stock split. So let's look at the Q3 earnings, and they look fantastic. So they have broken all records in this quarter. They have made a $59.7 billion revenue. That is way above anything any analyst could have dreamed for Apple. Now, you've got to take into consideration, this is all in the midst of the pandemic, with most Apple stores being shut. Some even still are shut across the world, and they are pulling off numbers like that. Let's look through the major categories of Apple. So you've got Mac, you've got the iPhone, you've got the software, which is huge for Apple now, and the wearables and accessories. And look at the numbers there. They have outperformed by massive amounts. Look at the iPad. The iPad is at 31% higher than what it was. The Mac is up 21.6%. The services are up 14.8%. And wearables and accessories are up 16%. This is a great sign for us investors who are considering getting into Apple, or for people that are already invested in Apple. Now, things could change, but are they going to? I don't think so. Apple are just a great company that seem to have everything in hand. Let's just go through a few more numbers for Apple before we move on to Microsoft and then comparing the two. So Apple, the market cap at the minute, as you can see, is $1.9 trillion. That is a huge amount. I think it is safe to say Apple are not in danger of going bankrupt and losing all of the investors' money. Another one, just a kind of cherry on top for how good Apple are, you do get the dividend. The dividend yield at the minute stands at 0.75%, which is fantastic. The way I maybe try and look at it is, if you've got an iPhone, hey, why don't you use the dividend to pay your contract if you can afford to put that much into Apple? And if you look at the 52-week low, that is at 192.58. Now, if you got in at that point, congratulations, you have made a lot of money already. Okay, so let's look at the future of Apple. Is it looking bright? Personally, I think it is. The iPhone is supposed to come out this quarter. Tim Cook has came out and said it may be delayed by a few weeks just due to the virus, but here's hoping that it does come out in this quarter. Quarter 4 usually is Apple's biggest quarter by quite a bit. This is obviously just due to Black Friday, Christmas, etc. But this year, the new iPhone is going to be the first one with 5G capabilities. Analysts are tipping this to bring in a heavy amount of money for Apple, which will obviously drive the stock price up. Now, I can't see this changing anytime soon. I can't see people not having Macs or iPhones in their houses, especially with the virus. Home offices are going to be so much more popular in the near future. And personally, as you can see, I'm a Mac lover. Every time I talk about laptops with other people, I always say how much I love my Mac. So I'm a huge believer in the Mac, and I think other people will have that on their wish list for their new offices at home. Okay, let's look through Microsoft. Microsoft have 3 main parts of their business, so let's run through them first. So you have got the productivity and business process. That is things such as LinkedIn, Skype, Office 365. Below that, you have cloud. So that is the Microsoft Azure. That's actually second only to Amazon Cloud. So it's a really big service and it does really well for Microsoft. So next is personal computing. So that are the products such as the laptops and the Xbox. With them 3 main parts of Microsoft's business, the sales have been quite up and down for the past 5 years, but all 3 areas finished really strong in 2019. Let's have a look at their numbers. So the productivity and business process was over $41 billion. The cloud services was just under $39 billion. And then over at personal computing, they made over $45 billion. The cloud is the most important thing for me when I'm looking at Microsoft. Although it's going to be really challenging because there's quite a competitive market, I think that part could bring in a lot more money for Microsoft and really give their stock growth. The total current assets for Microsoft stand at $170.5 billion. The total current liabilities are at $58.7 billion. That gives us a current ratio of 2.90. That is huge. That actually means that Microsoft can survive almost 3 years with no income coming in at all. So again, a great sign for investors. It shows that we would be in safe hands. The total revenue for 2019 was $121 billion, and they're estimating over $141 billion for 2020, which is a great sign for investors. And if you bought into that, and if you believe they can, you are sure to see some growth within the stock. And this is all great news for the CEO who joined Microsoft in 2016, and he said he wanted to make Microsoft into a growth company. Now, if you look at the stock chart from 2016, you can tell he's doing his job right. The stock has gone up and up and up, and he's performing really well. There is a concern, how much further can that stock grow? Personally, I'm not too sure, but again, it absolutely could. It could go either way. But when you look at the numbers, Microsoft look like you would be in safe hands putting your money there. So there are quite a few things that do worry me about Microsoft. One being they are not the leader in their field. Firms such as Alibaba are definitely ahead of Microsoft, whereas when you look at Apple, Apple are absolutely leading the way in their field. Now, that doesn't mean that Microsoft isn't a good investment, but it does kind of turn me off just a little bit. Another thing is when you look at the PE ratio for Microsoft, it's at 35, and that is quite high, which tells us the stock could absolutely be trading at a premium. Now, if Microsoft does drop a little bit, I absolutely would be intrigued and would possibly put some investment into it. But for me, when I look at the pros and cons of both Apple and Microsoft, personally, I feel that Apple is the safer and more exciting investment with much more growth. Now, again, I just want to reiterate, I am not saying that Apple is the investment for me because of the stock split. It may help a little bit in the short term, but long term, I am going with Apple because it is a solid investment. I don't know if you guys agree. Let me know down in the comment section. But yeah, my answer, Microsoft versus Apple, who would you go for? For me, it is Apple right now. That may change. Let's see how Microsoft come out of this year at the end of 2020. Let's see if the iPhone does make it out in Q4 for Apple. But either way, in this video, one thing I do want to put across, these are two companies that I absolutely would feel safe putting my money into. These two companies tick every box for me in my investment strategy. There are absolutely positives and negatives for both companies. For me, I think there's less negatives with Apple than there is Microsoft, but that does not mean Microsoft is not a good investment. Make sure you go and do your own research, go really in depth with both of these companies because they are absolutely brilliant companies, and I personally would feel my money was safe in either of them. But like I said, I am going to make a big investment in Apple as soon as I can. I'm going to keep an eye on the stock price. I know it's shot up by quite a bit lately, so let's see if that settles down a little bit before I put my big investment into it. But guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope it's helped you in some sort of way. If you have liked it, please smash the like button, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. See ya!